All right, well, I hope that you guys can hear me okay. This is a great group. Thanks so much for everybody for coming out. I'm so excited to share this information with you tonight. This is actually my passion. This is why I got involved in Arbonne in the first place, was just to really be able to help people make changes. These products, this company absolutely made such a change in my life. And really, you know, if it were not for my exposure to Arbonne and the experience that I had personally with products, I don't know that I would have opened my mind to a whole another way of healing, because I was sick when I was first introduced to the products, and I saw some amazing health benefits, kind of like what you've heard tonight. My health has continued to improve over time. I actually feel healthier now than I probably ever have felt my entire life. And you know, that journey, you know, it's sometimes it can be overwhelming. Like, I'm sure the first time that Dr. Linda Jefferies and Anna Joy heard this, it may have seemed overwhelming to them. But sometimes it's just small changes at a time, and you keep adding and making changes, and you know, you've got this one down and you add another one the next year, and before you know it, you've made some significant gains in your health. But what I love about this program is that it's the whole, it's complete. It's the whole thing. And what I really want to talk to you guys about tonight, I want to start off, I'm going to share a little bit on hormone balance. I'm just going to go there for about 15 minutes because I know that we've got some people who really want to hear about that. And then I'm going to share a little bit more, just some sections from the book that are kind of some of my favorite things. And basically, the other thing is we want you to, questions that you have should be, Eunice, where should questions be emailed to? Because we were going to actually address them on the blog. Questions?
If you have questions, if you will send them to euniceray@gmail.com.
You're brave. All right.
Yeah, I'll send them in and
yep.
get the questions
Okay.
answered because the website is changing.
All right, thank you. And it has been a complete joy to work with Dr. Linda Jefferies and Eunice Ray on the next version of this book. We're so excited. Really, so my background, I'm traditionally trained as a family practice physician. I actually decided that I wanted to go further after I kind of opened my mind to this whole nutritional healing concept, and I started a fellowship program that is basically integrative medicine, functional medicine. I do practice medicine just 2 days a week, very, very limited hours. I actually brought some cards that kind of tell you what I do. If anybody's interested, you can pick those up. But basically, what I do is I teach people how to really obtain, you know, what I call nutritional healing. So people who come to see me are the people who really don't want to maybe take a medication for a certain problem. They would like to try, you know, some other avenue. So, you know, again, I learned this, I started from my own personal story of hormone imbalance. So let me just start there real quick. So when I was in my early 30s, I was practicing medicine full time. I was working 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. I had 3 little kids. I was absolutely exhausted. I would have been asleep at this time at night. I had 0 energy. I had just really severe adrenal fatigue, and I can spot that like that now because I've experienced it myself. I didn't know it at the time. But what I did know was that I was having all kinds of hormonal issues, and I was introduced to a progesterone cream, a bioidentical progesterone cream that this company makes. I've been using that product myself since 2002. Every single month I've used that product and love it. It has completely changed my life, but that was really the springboard for me. So let me talk a little bit about some of the symptoms that we see when people are struggling with hormone imbalance. A lot of the real common ones, and you guys, there's probably a list in the book of maybe up to 100 different symptoms, but a lot of the very, very common ones are things like PMS, abnormal cycles. I always joke, it's not really a joke, but PMS did not used to be such a severe condition. Today it's really severe, as well as postpartum depression. But I can remember when I was in med school, I can remember PMS when it suddenly was included in what we call the DSM. It was probably 4 at that point, but basically a diagnostic manual. I can remember PMS suddenly being acknowledged in there. And then since that time, postpartum depression has also been acknowledged in there. But endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, Fibroids can be a symptom of hormone imbalance. Heavy painful periods, abnormal periods. Sometimes people will have too many cycles. Sometimes they have 1 or 2 a year. It's kind of all over, and even breast cancer can be a symptom of hormone imbalance. So a lot of symptoms that of course affect us. And basically, when you look at hormones in the body, there are 2 main reproductive hormones, and if I were to say that that's it, that would be just so simplified. There are so many more than that. But basically, those 2 main hormones are estrogen and progesterone. And so just kind of in a nutshell, how they're supposed to work is together. Okay, they're supposed to work together in conjunction with one another and balancing each other out. So estrogen is the predominant hormone during the woman's first half of her cycle. And it's a growth hormone. That's why they feed it to cows, okay? Because it gets them to the market. It allows them to grow more quickly from a baby, into an adult because it's stimulating, growth. It's basically a growth hormone. So what it does, estrogen in the female body, is it stimulates the lining of the uterus to grow, okay? To grow cells so that if the woman were to get pregnant, that fertilized egg would have a place to implant. Okay, so the first half of a woman's cycle is the estrogen dominant phase. The second half, okay, when she ovulates, is usually when you'll see an increase in progesterone. And progesterone's job is to put the brakes on the estrogen or to stop the estrogen. Okay, it's an antagonist, and it basically says, stop, the lining of the uterus is good, we don't need any more growth hormone in here. And then progesterone stabilizes that lining and is critical for that fertilized egg to be able to be maintained. One of the #1 causes of first trimester miscarriages is actually low progesterone. It's a progesterone deficiency. And that's why if a woman has had a few first trimester miscarriages, her physician is likely to put her on a bioidentical progesterone. That's what we recommend. To maintain the pregnancy, because it stabilizes that lining. If she doesn't have enough progesterone, her body will lose the pregnancy, lose the lining is actually what's happening. So let me talk for a minute about the difference between progesterone, bioidentical progesterone, and progestin. Because I was trained, in my traditional medical training, I was trained that they were the same thing. And they're not. They're absolutely not the same thing. I was trained that progesterone and then the synthetic version, progestin, were identical. They're not. They have completely different effects on the body. And unfortunately, oftentimes, things that progestin are guilty, progestin has been found guilty of a lot of things, and sometimes progesterone will be guilty by association, but they are not the same thing. So I like to give an analogy so that you can understand this very, very clearly, how different they are. Progesterone is absolutely critical for pregnancy. That's where it gets its name, from progestation. During the last trimester of a woman's pregnancy, the placenta makes up to 400 milligrams of progesterone a day. If she doesn't have progesterone, she can't maintain the pregnancy. It's that critical. The progesterone is critical for neurological development of the baby, for maintaining the lining of the uterus, and just for so many things within the body. Progestin, on the other hand, the synthetic man-made version, is contraindicated in pregnancy because it causes birth defects. Okay, that's the clearest difference that I can give, from a practical standpoint of why these two are so different, but yet in medicine we mix them up all the time. So, so that's the difference. So progesterone and estrogen work together in balance. Never in the natural state would I be found with an astronomical level of estrogen in my body and no progesterone to balance it out. Okay, they work together. But in medicine, we were typically prescribing just an estrogen to people with no progesterone to balance it. Okay, and that led to a lot of problems. It led to, early in the 70s, many of you probably have a mother or somebody in the 70s or 80s, 70s and 80s, who probably had to have a hysterectomy because they got cancer of the uterus. The reason they got cancer of the uterus was because they were taking estrogen, probably Premarin, without any progesterone. because progesterone would put the brakes on the estrogen. They just should not, be taken. So then they said, oh, we're causing this. That's actually what we said in medicine. We are causing this. So this was before my time a little bit, but it just never made sense to me. So at that point in medicine, they would say, okay, so if a woman, has a uterus, we have to put her on both, and that's when the pharmaceutical industry came in and said, we're going to make a synthetic man-made version of progesterone, and that's kind of how it was birthed, to be honest with you. Okay, that's kind of how this whole thing happened. But stop and think about this for just a minute. If we know that estrogen all by itself is going to cause cancer of the uterus, and it does, pretty much 100% of the time, if a woman has a uterus and she just takes estrogen, she's going to get that. But if we know that that's the case, and we say, oh, well, the woman doesn't have a uterus for whatever reason, so she doesn't have to be on progesterone, she can take just estrogen. What makes sense about that? We have estrogen and progesterone receptors throughout our body. Okay, so stop and think about that for a minute, and that's the thing that I think is so important, as you look at your health and look at nutritional healing. We have a brain, and we have to stop and think about things and ask, does this make sense? Okay, because we've got all these other organs, from ovaries to breasts to just everything else, that you just bathe them in a sea of estrogen and you're going to have problems. Okay, so that's a piece of the puzzle, is that things get out of balance. Well, let me tell you kind of how they get out of balance. So for a lot of young women, especially of childbearing age, typically they're going to kind of fall into a syndrome if they're having some of those symptoms where they're estrogen dominant and they don't have enough progesterone to balance things out. How does that happen? Well, I already mentioned a little bit on the medications. Okay, medications are a big part of it, and I'm one of those people that I won't drink city water. Okay, and the reason is that our water filtration systems in the U.S. were designed to filter out bacteria. That's it. They're designed to protect you from bacteria. They do not protect you from all of the medications that have made their way into there. I actually got a newsletter from my local county telling me what all was found to be in our local city water. And it ranged from blood pressure medicines to seizure medications to diabetic meds, cholesterol meds, pain meds. The list goes on, and there are antidepressants, there are traces of those in our water. And so we have all this exposure to chemicals, including synthetic hormones, etc., and it's causing an impact, a negative impact on our health. Another area, as Linda mentioned, she talked about that antibiotic exposure from the animals that we eat, the meat that we eat, the way meat is produced in this country, with the use of hormones, with the use of antibiotics, and those hormones are passed on to us, further disrupting. Okay, and then when we look at our fruits and vegetables and how they're produced in this country, again with massive amounts of insecticides and herbicides and just all kinds of chemicals, and those chemicals are known endocrine disruptors. We call them EDCs, endocrine disrupting compounds. And what they do, they have the ability to bind, they're basically toxins in the body. And whether you're eating it or putting it on your skin, it actually gets in and basically can cause damage. It can bind to certain hormone receptors and just send the wrong message. Okay, so this is a problem. And not only that, one of the things that we know, that we found, as we were doing a lot of research for the book and just looking through various information, a lot of times when you have toxins in your body, those toxins, your body is trying to protect you from those toxins. And what it does is it will try to store the toxins in fat cells, try to insulate the toxin in a fat cell. Our bodies, if we have a high toxic load, okay, a lot of toxins in our system, our bodies will actually make more fat cells, more adipocytes is what they're called, to seal off or to try to encase those toxins, to try to protect us. Well, when that happens, we usually end up basically gaining weight kind of around the middle is one of the biggest areas. And sometimes people who are using a weight loss program, they feel like they're doing well, they're losing weight, but they're still struggling in that area. And oftentimes it's because they've not incorporated detoxification, and so their body is recirculating those toxins. Okay, so when I have somebody who's losing weight, if they're in an active weight loss phase, let's say that they're losing 8 pounds a month or something, I want them to do a detox, okay, a whole body detox on a monthly basis until they get to a point that they are at maintenance. Okay, then they can do it quarterly. But the reason is that I don't want those circulating toxins within their system, okay, because they're going to just basically go into another fat cell, or your body will make another fat cell to store it. So going back to the hormone imbalance, you know, we looked at just other sources of exposure. One of the biggest sources of exposure, in my opinion, is actually personal care products. Okay, personal care products that we use that are out in the marketplace that are loaded with harsh ingredients, that are endocrine disrupting compounds, that, you know, the skin is the easiest way to get something into your body. Okay, if you were having chest pain tonight, you know, and you went in to the emergency room and they gave you some nitroglycerin, you know, sublingual under your tongue, that's through the skin. Okay, and then they found out, oh, the chest pain was relieved. Well, now they're going to put some nitro paste on your chest to keep it, you know, so that you're not having a coronary spasm. Why are they using the skin to get that medication in? Because it's the fastest way to get it in. Okay, now stop and think for a minute about all the toxins that are in personal care products, and the fact that how many of those do we use in a day? Between shampoos, conditioners, body lotions, makeups, etc. All this stuff that we're constantly putting on, and it builds up. It builds up, it adds up, and our body has to do something about it. That's actually the reason. If I go back to when I first started with Arbonne and look at, you know, what was so compelling to me, yes, I had great results with the progesterone cream, with the bioidentical progesterone. But what was so compelling to me was that I knew how easy it was to get medicine in through the skin. And as I started to read ingredients and look at that, I thought, oh my gosh, this makes perfect sense. You know, this is why it's so important to partner with a company that's willing to put an ingredient policy in the front pages of their catalog, you know, explaining that they're not going to use formaldehyde donating preservatives. They're not going to use, you know, mineral oil and just so many other nasty ingredients that are going to cause problems long term. Okay, so that's kind of how hormones get messed up. Okay, it's just from everything that we're exposed to in the environment, and then a lot of medications, the food that we eat, etc. But the good news is we can bring things back into balance. That's the part that I love. What I love doing is just helping people to understand there is such a thing as nutritional healing. There's a whole nother way to do healthcare, to do medicine, and it's basically just by giving your body what it needs, and your body has the ability in many cases to restore itself, to heal itself. And so that's what I did with progesterone. Okay, that was my first foray into nutritional healing, was really with the progesterone. So in looking at that, you know, I always tell people, and there are ways to use it in the book, and so I won't go into detail, but basically to kind of give you an idea, for most women who are of childbearing age, we have them use the bioidentical progesterone on the back half of their cycle. Day 1 of their cycle is the day they start to bleed. I have them count into about day 12. They use it from day 12 to about 26. Okay, that's the standard way of using it. It's 1 pump of transdermal cream that gives them 20 milligrams of progesterone per dose absorbed in. There are other ways, like if they're trying to get pregnant, or if they find out they're pregnant and they've had a first trimester miscarriage, or if they have endometriosis or really severe cramping or polycystic ovarian syndrome. Those are all other, you know, tweaks, okay, and how to use that product, and that's all in the book as well. But we've seen people just respond beautifully by balancing out their hormones. So for me, you know, 12 years ago, I guess it was, I started with the whole hormone balance piece, and that I felt tremendously better. That made such a difference. But I had so many other health issues going on. I was a product of the 80s, you know, and 90s. My medical training was during the 90s, and during that time, the diet that we recommended was the low-fat cardiac diet. Well, you know, trying to take care of myself, and I've always been health conscious, I decided that it was best for me to pretty much avoid as much fat as I could. And so if you eliminate the fat from your diet, what are you eating? Carbs, sugar and carbs. So in the 90s when I was in med school, that's what I was eating. And so I was creating this inflammatory condition within my body that ultimately led to an inflammatory type of arthritis. I mean, I actually had, 10 years ago, I had a rheumatologist in Nashville tell me that if I didn't start a disease-modifying drug, I would be in a wheelchair within 10 years. I'm probably more active today than I probably ever have been in my life, and I was able to reverse every bit of that. But I want you to know that I lived with that every single day. There was not a day of my life that I was not confronted with that. There wasn't really a day where it was like, okay, it's good, it's gone, you know, kind of thing. It was bad enough that the first house that I had in Nashville, the kids were upstairs and you know, there were stairs. I could not walk up the stairs at night to get them because I had so much pain in my feet and in my knees, etc. when I would wake up. So that's where I was. I want you to understand where I was and really how significant this was for my own health. And it's been those gradual changes. Yes, I started with hormone balance, but then I entered into this whole phase of nutritional healing as I started to look at just simply correcting the deficiencies that were within my body. Do you know that most of us are running around, we're deficient in vitamin D? Almost everybody in this area is deficient in vitamin D. The normal range for vitamin D is on your blood test would be between 30 and 100. We like to push people between 60 and 100. 30 is not high enough. 60 to 100 is best. And here's why. Vitamin D is actually a hormone. It's really not a vitamin, and it's involved in so many things. And one great example is if somebody has high blood pressure. How common is hypertension? Extremely common, right? If somebody has high blood pressure and they just simply correct their vitamin D deficiency alone, they can, in many cases, there are studies that show that you'll decrease the blood pressure by 8 millimeters of mercury. That's as good as a hypertension medicine. Which would you rather do? Correct your vitamin D deficiency and get an 8 millimeters drop in your blood pressure, or take a pill that's going to have a bunch of side effects? Okay, one of the more common hypertensive medications for hypertension that we would prescribe would be a beta blocker. Okay, so if I give a guy a beta blocker, he's all of a sudden going to be depressed. He's going to feel a tremendous amount of fatigue. His testosterone level was going to go from normal to plummeted, and he's going to feel like crap. Okay, and that's what we do in medicine. So it's like, you look at that and you go, okay, which would you rather do? There are, of course, a lot of other great nutrients that help with things like hypertension, with cholesterol, etc. And we've included that in the book, just recommendations, things that people can do naturally that are proven. That's the thing that I love about this is, and even in what I do, every single thing that I do in my practice or that's included in the book, it's well researched. There's a research article backing it up. Okay, showing that yes, you can get this benefit from standardized green tea extract, from omega-3 essential fatty acids, etc. It makes a difference. So let me talk a little bit more about this nutritional healing and then kind of where Arbonne fits in with this. So basically, we're all deficient in something. If you're not eating a perfect diet, and even if you are eating a perfect diet, chances are you still have nutrient deficiencies. My personal belief is that when you follow a program like this, what I think happened for me, okay, I don't have any health problems at this point. I still have a thyroid issue. I'm not going to get rid of that. It is what it is. However, what I believe happened is as I kept improving my nutrition, eating the right foods, supplementing with supplements, etc., I was correcting nutrient deficiencies without even knowing it. Today, I know what nutrient deficiencies I have because, we have testing or that I do or don't have because we do testing that's intracellular nutrient testing to see what are you deficient in. That's one way that you can look, and you can tell a lot about a person just from that information alone and helping them to correct things, to just make simple little changes in their diet. That's the answer to it. So anyway, when we look at this whole concept of nutritional healing, that's what I love about this program, is that you are correcting so many of those nutrient deficiencies by using the Arbonne protein shake. I think that is an absolutely perfect food. I love that it is made with the yellow pea protein that's so digestible, that's got all the amino acids. It's GMO free. It's it's gluten. It's formulated without gluten, etc., etc. I mean, it's just a fantastic product line. And then when you look at all of the supplements that we have as well, adding those in, that adds up to significant benefits over the long term. I want to spend, and I promise, I think we're doing okay on time. Let me look here. And it's talking a little bit about metabolic syndrome, because we do cover this more in detail in the book. And this is just something that I just was fascinated by what I learned in the fellowship program that I did in this area. Metabolic syndrome is something that we are seeing more and more of. And metabolic syndrome is basically a combination of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Okay? Those three things together, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes, are a ticking time bomb. Okay? That's really what it is. It's a ticking time bomb. The neat thing is, we can affect every single one of those with nutrition, with nutritional therapy. We can make a difference for every single one of those. And it's not so much, a lot of people say, well, I've got high cholesterol, so I have to go on a low cholesterol diet or whatever. There's actually a study that shows that that doesn't really do anything. But there are some great supplements, some great nutrients that you can feed yourself that will do something, like omega-3 essential fatty acids. Okay, that's a product that we have. Love that product. Use it. All of my kids are on that. And why? Because it's anti-inflammatory. Okay, because it does so much. Omega-3s, essential fatty acid, that's what your body uses to heal things, to repair, to correct. And hey, Dominique, can you get me a glass of water? Thanks. Thanks so much. Okay, so let me talk for a minute about omega-3s. All disease in our body is actually caused from three things. It's inflammation, it's autoimmune, and it's oxidative stress. Okay, that's where all of the disease actually comes from. When you look back at every single disease process, you can find those three, one of those three things, and sometimes all of them incorporated. So when we talk about inflammation, we talk about oxidative stress, and we talk about autoimmune, all of those things have an impact. Okay, so let me just give you a little example of nutritional healing from a blood pressure, kind of cholesterol, GI standpoint. Okay, so when you look at the lining of the, when you think about blood pressure, okay, because this is a really, really common one. I mean, we'll have people in here who have high blood pressure. When you think about high blood pressure, I know I was trained in medicine to treat a number. My goal was just to get that number down, okay? That was really it. And what we now know, and I look at it from a very different standpoint now, the high blood pressure is actually a symptom of a disease that's going on at the lining of the vessel. Okay, there's a disease happening. There's a disease process going on at the lining of the vessel, and what I want to do is change that. I want to dramatically change that. Thank you so much. I want to dramatically change what's going on at the lining of the blood vessel. So what's going on at the lining of the blood vessel? Well, let's just talk about inflammation. Okay, so the lining gets inflamed. Sometimes it gets inflamed from toxins. Okay, that's actually oxidative stress. Is usually like oxide ions, peroxide, etc., from free radicals within your body will get into the lining of the blood vessel. And when you have inflammation, you get gaps within the cells, between the cells. Okay, so now I have a blood vessel. I've got some gaps between my cells because I've got inflammation, I've got oxidative stress. And what can now happen is, now that I have my gap, okay, first of all, my blood vessel's not going to work the same. It's going to have an impact on my blood pressure. Think about a garden hose and the water shooting through a garden hose. If you were to take that garden hose now and you made cuts all along the way, would the cuts impact the pressure of the water going through? Okay, so that's kind of like your blood vessel. So now I've got an impact on that. Well, through that gap that's in my blood vessel, plaque can get through. Okay, the types of cholesterol that are the bad cholesterol, what we call LDL, which the smaller that bad cholesterol is, the easier it is for it to slip through the crack. So I always tell people it's not enough just to know what your HDL and LDL are. You need to look further. You need to know, well, when you look at my LDL, what kind of LDL do I have? Do I have those teeny tiny particles that can slip through there? Or do I have big fluffy ones that can't get through? Obviously the big fluffy ones are better. Well, guess what? We can take there's nutrition that can actually impact what the quality of your LDL is. So that cholesterol slips through the crack, okay? It mixes in with some of the inflammatory components, etc., and it creates a plaque. That's the start of coronary artery disease, okay? One of the leading killers in our country. So here's the example of omega-3s. Omega-3s, basically, your body will use that to seal the gap, to basically fill in that place in between the cells. It's going to help decrease inflammation. It's going to help seal the gap. It's going to make a tremendous difference. Omega-3s have actually been proven to have a positive impact on coronary artery disease, and that's part of it, is that it's decreasing inflammation. Okay, that's why they're now used. Omega-3s, essential fatty acids, are used for anybody with high cholesterol, because it has an impact on the quality of the cholesterol as well. So you can see how something so simple, I mean, you could just eat avocados every night, you know, and that's going to give you some great omega-3s, but most of us probably don't do that. So that's why supplementing can make such a difference. And, you know, really what I would encourage you on, and so I talked about the lining of the blood vessel. Well, it goes further. You know, how many of you, you know, you heard Linda talk a lot about the gut and the whole GI system. And honestly, omega-3s make a tremendous difference in the lining of the gut as well, as far as healing, repair, decreasing the inflammation, and you know, there's a wall there, and the same thing can happen. As cells get damaged, as they get inflamed, they become leaky, and things can get through, things can pass through. That's what we call that leaky gut syndrome. Many of you have probably heard of that. And so this is a great way, adding omega-3s, that we see people improve tremendously from a GI system. So in a nutshell, I mean, that's kind of what we do. And what I love about Arbonne is that Arbonne fits into this perfectly. This is actually the direction that we are going as a company. We will always be anti-aging, but we do believe that anti-aging starts on the inside. And you know, if you are healthy, it shows on the outside. And so we will continue to see you know, products developed from our company that are going to support that are basically going to help us to stay healthy, you know, that are going to make a difference for us. And you know, again, I'm just a little brief thing on Arbonne. I've been with the company for 12 years. I practice medicine 2 days a week, and I do it this way because of Arbonne. Because if I didn't have Arbonne in my life, I wouldn't be able to do it this way. I wouldn't have been able to take the time to do a fellowship program. I wouldn't be able to just work 2 days a week in medicine because I love doing what I do. But it was because of Arbonne and the business that I was able to build with this company that made such a difference. So for me, in terms of the business, I wasn't looking for a business. I didn't even know that this was a business. I thought the person who introduced me to this company, I thought she was a nutraceutical sales rep for a company called Arbonne. I had no idea. And you know, she came into my practice, and you know, I got hooked on these products, and next thing I know, she was my account rep. So I had an account. That's all I knew. I'd call her and tell her what I needed. She'd place orders for me. Before you know it, because I'm telling people about the products, she came into my office and said, "You're a new district manager with Arbonne." And I said, "What does that mean?" And it was Lisa Voorhees, and who's one of my very best friends, and she said, "Don't worry about it, keep doing what you're doing." And she left. That's it. I'm not kidding. She flipped around and out the door she went. I'm like, huh, okay. Well, Arbonne sent me a check for $600 because I was a district manager. And I called her and I said, "Arbonne sent me a check for $600. Why did they send me a check? I didn't do anything for this. What's up?" And then that's when we had a conversation about what this business is. And I can remember standing in my kitchen and saying to Lisa, "Why didn't you tell me about this sooner?" And she said, because I didn't think you'd be interested. You already have a 6-figure income. You're the busiest person I know. And I knew the products were for you, but I just didn't think this business would be for you. And I said, what you don't know is that I've been dying to work part-time in medicine, but financially I can't. It's not an option for me. I have to stay full-time. But I'm missing out on so many things that my little kids are doing at their school or whatever, and it's killing me. It's breaking my heart. So I would do anything to be able to work part-time in medicine. So tell me what I need to do to make this work. I want to be a regional vice president in 9 months. And Lisa laid out a plan and that showed me exactly how to achieve that. 9 months to the day, which is when my kids got out of school, I was a regional vice president with Arbonne, which is the Mercedes-Benz level. That was enough. I had determined that was enough to supplement my income so I could go part-time. And I went part-time, and I got to have my first ever phenomenal summer with my kids, who were babies at the time. They're all 3 in high school now. They're all 3 teenagers in high school. It's the greatest time ever. But anyway, I can remember that so clearly, like it was just yesterday. You know, it goes by like this. And you know, before you know it, I've got one, you know, I have a senior. And I just look at it and I go, where did the time go? I am so thankful that I built this business then and that I have the time freedom that I have now. To be able to be with them, to be able to create this flexible schedule. So whether you're here tonight and you came because you wanted to hear about nutritional healing or a little bit about hormone balance, about gut health, whatever it may be, you know, what I want you guys to leave with is, yes, that's here, absolutely, but there's more than that, okay? Whether you are someone who feels like you want to make an extra $500 a month or you want to replace an income, that's here too. Okay, it does not matter what the person's background is, really, it doesn't matter anything like that. When I look at our group of top leaders in this company, I laugh. I laugh because they have nothing in common except for a desire to change the way their life once was. That's really it. So I would encourage you tonight, you know, to get with the person who invited you and to find out more information. You know, I always tell everybody, it may or may not be a fit, but it's definitely worth checking out. And what I can tell you for certain is that these products will absolutely change your life. They do what they say they do. Actually, they do way more than what they say they do. It's just that we're really low-key about it on purpose. But they do. The products do way more than what they say they do, and you will not be disappointed. You absolutely will get results. So thanks so much for joining us tonight, everybody. I really appreciate it. And again, get with the person who invited you and just get the information that you need, because, you know, who knows, your life may be changed, dramatically changed tonight, just as Dominique's was when she sat on that airplane. How many years ago?
2006.
Okay, about 7 years ago. So thanks so much, everybody, and have a great evening. Don't forget to send your questions. EuniceRay@gmail.com. She's going to put them together. We're going to stick them in the blog. If you want more information as far as that, you're welcome to grab those. And thank you. Everybody have a great night.